Hi guys, Squirrely here. Now this video we're going to take a look at what's coming in 1.31 of Euro Truck Simulator 2 and American Truck Simulator. So let's get started. Now before we get started on the details and take a deep dive into these changes, let's go through the headline items. These are the items that are going to affect you most as a player. Now common to Euro Truck Simulator 2 and American Truck Simulator, we have simulated power and airlines between the truck and trailer. We also have a new, more accurate mirror view. Now the mirror view is closer to what a real truck driver can see in terms of his field of view. We have new freight market filter options so you can find freight much easier. We have some changes in the tooling of map mods, which essentially means when you go to 131, it's highly likely that your map mods will no longer work and you'll have to wait for them to be recompiled for 131. And finally, we have an improved console, which has some very interesting features. Now, specifically to Euro Truck Simulator 2, we have random events. These are the events, the dynamic things that happen as you're driving along. These have come over now from American Truck Simulator. We have an 8x4 chassis for the next Gen Scania R&S. We have lots of new transport, special transportation routes, which is kind of cool. And we have the Mighty Griffin DLC support for the next Gen Scania, so you can decorate your next Gen Scania a lot better if you have that DLC. Finally, for American Truck Simulator specifically, we have new bottom dumping trailers. These are trailers that take, aggregate like sand and limestone. And we have some changes to the mapping. We have a new road which goes through Yosemite National Park, the CA 120. So that's the list of items for both Euro Truck and American Truck. Let's take a deep dive in more detail. Now the first change is the simulated power and airlines that I talked about between the truck and trailer. The yellow and red lines there, they are the power and airlines. If we move, you'll see them as I brake, you'll see them physically wiggle around. They used to be a fixed component, a fixed asset before, but now they actually simulated, they move around. Unfortunately, we can't get out of our truck and attach them as you would in real life, but it's still a step in the right direction. If we connect the trailer up, you'll see that what happens is the lines get connected physically there, you see? And they are simulated as you drive around. And when I say simulated, what I mean by that is they move. So if I start to drive now and I take some little zigzag and braking like that, you can see they're kind of springy as they are in real life. As you go around corners, go over bumps, that kind of thing, they stretch and move like that. That is the change that is now in Euro Truck Simulator. This is an American Truck Sim as well. Now, it doesn't massively affect you, obviously, when you're driving the truck like this. It's just a cosmetic thing that you'll mostly appreciate when you're taking photographs or when you're driving the external camera. But nevertheless, it's still a cute little addition to the game. Now, this next change is something that you're going to notice and feel the effects of. This is a change to the mirror rendering. And when you look at the mirrors, then you may not instantly recognize a change. But if you was to compare this against the previous version 130, you would definitely start to notice a difference here. What they've done is they've changed the field of view of the mirrors. They've changed the angle that the mirrors reflect light. Previously, they were a lot kind of more widescreen, but if you notice in particular, low one now has a much lower field of view. That means that you see less in the mirror, but you see much more clearly, especially at a distance, so you can see the back of the trailer properly. Now the upper mirror is a much more wide angle. Now if we start to change the position of the seat, this is where you'll also notice a change. Pay attention to the angle, like what I can see down the side of the truck here. As I move back in my seat position, you can see that the field of view changes based on my seat position. So the position of your head determines what you can see as reflected in the mirror, which is as it should be. Now you can't actually change the field of view of the mirrors themselves as it is in real life, but you can move around and position the mirrors as you would normally. With the F4 key, you can change the angle of them like this, and between your kind of seating position and the angle that you put the mirrors at, you can find something that's much more comfortable. Now it will take a bit of adjusting, particularly when you're reversing trailers. I mean, I've got my track IR on here, so I can keep moving my head. I can even configure my track IR so that I can move sideways like that. So now if I want to, I can actually lean a little bit over and get a slightly better angle of view. But you know, if you was to look at the mirror like this and you're reversing like that, what you should notice is that your mirrors are more zoomed in. So in some respects it makes it a bit easier, but you'll have to kind of unlearn what you previously learned with the 130 mirrors. It's kind of hard to explain what's going on, but it's just something you're going to have to get used to. Now, I do recommend you map a key to the zoom if you haven't already done so. It greatly helps when you're trying to reverse in. If you just go to your keys and scroll down to the camera settings, which is down here, the zoom interior camera is normally not mapped. I've got it mapped to the shift key. You can map to wherever you like. But it does help if you're trying to do a in-cab reverse, particularly that mirror there. It does help if you can zoom in with a shift key, because you can't see, you know, terribly well through that mirror. But you know, that's what a truck driver has to deal with anyway on a daily basis. So that's quite a big change. That one, unlike the simulated lines on the back, that one will affect your driving on a daily basis. Now the next change comes to the job market, or the freight markets, and it concerns the filtering options that you get up here. Now, you may or may not be able to remember what filtering looks like in 130 compared to what it looks like in 131, but briefly, in 130 you only had these kind of major filters. So if you was to say choose machinery, that kind of thing, that is all you could get. This is the same in Eurotruck as it is in American Truck Sim. This feature is now implemented in both in 131. What it lets you now do is you can fine-tune your filtering. So for example, if I wanted to pick some construction like this, well, that's not a good choice, is it? Let's go for some other options, something with multiple. There we go, let's just go with machinery. So with machinery, you can see down here we've also got, you know, some important delivery ones, some high value cargo, some standard cargo, some fragile stuff over here. What you can do with these lower filters is you can apply these to the major categories. So if I want to find specifically fragile machinery, I can now add another filter for fragile. And if then I want to say, well, I want something that is of high importance or important delivery, I can click that, and you can see it's applied them both on top of the machinery, and I can kind of tune in on what I want to find. If you want to clear the filter options, then you just click here. Now there's also a search box where you can just type in the word, you know, cars like that, and then again, having done that, you could then apply, well, I just want fragile cars, and there you go. So these changes apply to both American Truck and Eurotruck and should help you to find jobs much more easily. Next up, we have changes to the console. What do I mean by the console? Well, it's the developer console. You access it by pressing the tilde key. However, you only see this if you've actually got it enabled in your settings. I do have a video that tells you how to teleport, my teleportation guide. I'll drop a link into the video description if you're not sure how to enable the console. I do in that video go into more details about how to use the console, which I won't do in this video. Now, previously, the console, if you remember it, was just a black window that came down over the top half of your screen, and you couldn't move it, you couldn't resize it, it just sat there. The new console is a window in its own right, so you can move it around, you can resize it however you want, and they've changed the way that you access these settings here, which used to be a bit weird, but in this one you can now, you know, if you want to look for just camera stuff, you can just type it in there, and it's a lot easier to find things if you want to look through the console. Now there's also something slightly more interesting in this console, and that's what's going on the top left there, and this is where it can get a little bit crazy. If you know what's going on here, then it can be very useful information, but if you don't, it's going to look pretty weird. For example, if we go to visualize and turn on the specular light option, you may be thinking to yourself, what the heck am I looking at here? Specular light options. Well, again, this is only really of relevance to people who are developing, which is what the console's meant to be. But it can be very interesting. For example, the diffuse one will give you an idea of how diffuse light is rendering in the scene. One of my particular favorites is the, which one is it? Is that Pixel? The wireframe. There you go. The wireframe one is just crazy. Look at that. You can see all the polygons in the scene. Now this isn't terribly useful unless you're a map modder, in which case it is very useful. You can kind of get a feel for what's going on in the scene. If there's any particular problems, you can debug them a lot more quickly. People like me and you, it's just terribly fun to play with. Up here there are some rendering stats, which when you get rid of the console, it will just leave them on there, so you can see what kind of frame rates you're getting and that kind of thing. And there's some more kind of stuff you can put on the screen, like how many triangles there are. Again, for map authors, this kind of information is very, very useful. It helps them optimize their map. But I just thought I'd show you it because it's a nice bit of fun. And this console window I do use, for example, if I go to the external camera and I start to sort of fly around like this, when I bring the console down, it actually shows me what the camera speed setting was. So I know that if I'm flying at that speed there, that is camera speed 35.3, whereas if I slow it down a bit and fly at that speed there, I know that it's 7.5. Again, it's not massively useful for most players, but if you're a builder of mods and that kind of thing, or a video maker, then it might be quite kind of useful. But that is the changes that have come in 131 to the actual console. Now, all the things that I've showed you so far are common to both Euro Truck Sim and American Truck Sim. Now we're into the specific stuff for Euro Truck Simulator. First of all, the special transport routes, many have been added. If you click on an email here, you should have this new email, and down the bottom it will say you can now also take these new ones. These new special transport cities are available at Linz and so on. I'll take you through those quickly now. If you go to the job market and then to the freight market, drop the list down, choose the special transport. The first one, there are two in England actually. The first one comes out of Cardiff, so if you click there you can see the route here is between Cardiff, which is in South Wales, and Birmingham, which is here. That's about 247 kilometers long. Next one is Dijon, so that's Dijon down to Geneva. That one is about 227 kilometers long. Next up, you've got, where is it, Linz. So Linz to Brno, Linz in Austria up to Brno in Czech Republic. That one's almost 300 kilometers long. Then you've got London, so back in the UK. Good to see London getting some action here. London over to Felixstowe, which is where my home base is in this game, as it happens to be. And that's quite a short run, only 147 k's, but that is quite a twisty one because obviously it's the UK, so there's some interesting roads that you drive down there. Then we go down to, I think it's Naples, so Napoli here. Naples goes over to Terni. That one is 341 k's long. That is actually the longest one in the whole pack. And then we go from Nice to Nice, which sounds pretty weird. It's only 83 k's long, but it still seems to take a little while to do. It's quite an interesting little route, that one. Then we've got Palermo to Catania. Palermo being in Sicily down here to Catania, which is just down there, although it's on the north side of it. That one is 177 k's long. And then the pronunciation of this I will probably completely make a mess of, but it's this one here, Szeged to Debrecen. I have no idea how you pronounce that. I've probably made a dog's dinner out of it, but that is. It's Hungary, 229 k's. And then the very last job, this one is the only one I've seen that spawns a boat. This isn't showing a boat, but it does spawn a boat this road, this journey. This is from Trelleborg, down here in southern Sweden, to Esbjerg in Denmark. They are all the new special transport routes available in 131 in addition to the other ones. If you're not seeing any special transport routes, it's highly likely you haven't got a high enough level on your profile yet. Now then, this is the next Gen Scania, and I'm sure you're thinking to yourself, wow, that looks pretty cool. and you know, I would agree, that looks absolutely splendid. There are a few things going on here. One is the new 8x4 chassis, the next Gen Scania 8x4 chassis, which has been added, which is totally configurable. You can see it here. The second thing is, if you have the Mighty Griffin DLC, then you can now add Mighty Griffin parts to it. So if we go to the upgrade shop, like this, and then we choose specifically disable all those, and we go for the Mighty Griffin tuning pack, then you can see on here that there's a whole bunch of things available. Anything with this symbol You can reconfigure this to your heart's content. There are so many options. There's all kinds of brand new bull bars you can get. Parts galore. I can't take you through them all. There's all kinds of mud flaps. There's mud flaps on the back here. Different components back here. Different back ends. If you've got a next Gen Scania, the Mighty Griffin pack is something you probably seriously want to consider, because it really does add quite a lot to your next Gen Scania now, and it's a free update if you already have the DLC. One last point while we're here, in case you're looking at this skin and thinking to yourself, where the heck do I get that Squirrel Heavy Haul pack from? This is already in the Steam Workshop. Paulie, who does my skins, it's in his workshop. Just go to the Steam Workshop, search for Squirrel, and you'll very quickly find stuff done by Paulie, and you'll find the Squirrel Heavy Haulage. It includes not just a skin for the next Gen Scania and the 8x4 chassis, it also skins up the convoy vehicles that take you around on the special transport journeys. So if you want to get that, it's in the Steam Workshop. Now, American Truck Sim has had random events for some time, but they're just about making their way over to Euro Truck Simulator 2. Random events can be big things like crashes on the motorway, or police arrests, or they can be little things like this by the roadside, like little small roadworks. You may not even notice them unless you are looking, but here they are. They're in American Truck Sim, if you remember them. Just little roadside markers. You'll find random events scattered around as you're driving, but they are controlled by a particular option. So if you go to Options Gameplay and scroll down a little bit here, you'll see Random Road Events, and you can basically max it out so they happen all the time, or minimize it so that it never happens. They start around about here, I think, so they're not that frequent. So just use that to adjust how frequently you want to see them. Please note though, I don't think they're available in the special transport routes. When I did all my special transport routes, I didn't see any random events, so I think they're disabled on that. Now we get on to the changes specific to American Truck Simulator, and first up we have a road change. We have a brand new road, which is this one, the Route 120. Originally the map would go from here to Oakdale. It would stop just about where that service station is. Now you can take this brand new road, which is the 120, which goes all the way up and meets the 395. Now this goes through Yosemite National Park, which is a rather beautiful area and protected area. And I won't spoil it too much for you, but it is a stunning drive to take. There is a limit of 45 feet though on the length of your vehicle, so there is that, so you can't take any load you want down this road, but if you drive down it, you're going to have a lovely time. New in 131 of American Truck Sim is a new trailer. This is the bottom dumper trailer. This is a trailer that would normally carry something like sand, gravel, limestone, that kind of thing. Essentially aggregate that is poured into the top, covered up, and then to unload it, it would drive over, usually over a grill, and then the chute would open and drop the contents into a grill. Normally this trailer doesn't get disconnected from the truck, it just goes around and around, being loaded and unloading. So there are three variations of this trailer. This is the single unit one, triple axle single unit, and then you've got another variation of this, which is a single axle front unit coupled to a twin axle rear unit. And then the final configuration is, and the biggest one, is this one, which is the triple axle that you saw earlier, coupled up to the twin axle on the back. This one I've not been able to find in the job market so far. I don't know if it's because I'm on the beta and that's just a little bugette, but I've tried to find this one and I can't find it, so we're going to take a look at this one in the flesh. There you go, that's what the trailer looks like in the flesh. This particular one is 17 tons, full of sand. Now remember what I was saying earlier about how you would normally use this kind of trailer. Well, in the game, of course, they don't have the ability to open the chutes, which would have been kind of cool if it would do that, but sadly, it looks like we have the standard drive-in disconnect kind of setup, because anything else would require a game change, I guess. So yeah, looks like we just drive in over here and try to line that up and drop it off. So yeah, unfortunately no particular drop chute for that trailer, but it is a kind of fun trailer. It's nice to see that in the default game. Well, that brings us to the end of the video on 1.31. Hope you enjoyed it. If you want to opt into 1.31 before it releases, just go to Steam, choose Properties on the game, and then go to the betas tab, drop down the list and choose public 1.31. Please remember though that it'll likely break a few of your mods. It'll most certainly break the map mods, and almost always breaks things like sound mods and physics mods, that kind of thing, so just be prepared for that. Hope you found the video useful. Please give me a thumbs up if you did. Until next time, take care guys. Happy trucking.